Hi everyone, this is Jim Tolles, and today I want to talk about spiritual awakening and enhanced sensitivities. So, in many respects, I talk about awakening as this kind of flood of energy. And part of what it does is it blows out all the old walls, it peels off all the old calluses that we've built up around ourselves so we wouldn't feel. In truth, like most people are just kind of covered in callus and in walls and barriers to keep themselves from experiencing things that they don't want to experience. Most of it's unconscious, but it also still serves a purpose because there's lots of energies and emotions and things that are just kind of flying in that subtle world constantly. You can think of it very simply as far as like, building up your toughness towards, taking criticism or something like that. If you work in a creative job or any type of job where you've got to deal with lots of criticism and feedback, so there's that shielding you build up so that you don't feel bad or feel uncomfortable. Well, awakening wipes that out, and it doesn't really give you anything to you back. And so now you're kind of this newborn out here, and every errant draft, every slightly upset thought can absolutely freak you out. And this is where I often talk to people about this is why we go within and we may step outside of our current lives. And the truth of the matter is most of the current lives we have usually aren't the ones we want to step back into. But initially there's for a lot of people this kind of old hanging on of the ego that while it's been exposed and while you can often see it, you don't really have something else to hang on to. And so there's this tendency to go back to that old way of living. And depending on the person, they hold on to this old way more and more. The more you hold on to it, this is where those pain symptoms I've talked about before come up for a lot of people because they're resisting themselves. It's an inner resistance. It's not the external world is doing something to you. The external world is still kind of doing its thing. It's always doing its thing. I mean, that's the point of the whole awakening is we accept the world in its entirety. We aren't trying to make it into something else. Being the change that you want to see in the world just simply means being you. It's not actually about changing you. And so the metaphor of really it's an uncovery, right? So if a callus is being pulled off the skin, I know it's kind of gritty, nasty, but it can feel like that. You can feel very raw, very opened up. But you have to get used to being in this opened up place and learning to find that strength and vulnerability in your own love and in your own presence. That's how you start to be able to move more clearly and with strength in your life. The more you're kind of opened up into this flow, lots of stuff is still going to pass through, but the more you clean out anything that can get hit by those errant criticisms or angry thoughts or upset energies. I mean, even being in a place, like downtown Oakland comes to mind, there's a lot of upset, angry, fear energy there because there's been a lot of suffering there. And so you can feel that in people who are already naturally highly sensitive. You don't have to be awakened to be highly sensitive. You'll feel those types of things. It may not be a comfortable place to hang out. But the more you clean out that inner part of you that's going to get upset by it, that's going to get rattled by it, the more you can just kind of be with these things. It's just like, well, this is what's here. And if this is a place you need to be, then you are. And usually what happens too as we get more and more sensitive, we do make choices about where we want to be and what's right for us, but not as much from that self-protective, life is threatening sort of way, but more from what is nourishing. So you can hear the switch that's happening. The one is the ego is like, how do I protect myself constantly? And then you start to move around. It's like, well, what spaces actually really nourish me? And this is a big shift that starts to happen. It's important for those of you who are already energetically sensitive, regardless of if you've awakened or not, to pay attention to what's supportive to you. But there's additional work there that I can talk about because usually there's the subtle ego that's trying to control life as well, that wants things to be a certain way and feel a certain way. The awakened ego isn't like that. And when I say ego here, it's the ego that knows it's an ego and it's made up. It's just a perspective that's here to help you learn how to safely drive your car and pay your taxes. I mean, it's very functional when you've cleaned away all the built-up preferences and fears and angers and issues. So you wake up, the walls drop, you're super sensitive. What now? Sit with it. Sit with it in safe spaces, right? This is a sacred time. It's not a time to go run around and save the world. There's often that push for a lot of people because there's a rising of love. And because most people don't know how to be with love, and this is the truth, they're like kids with like $50 in their bank account. They immediately want to go spend it. You actually need that currency for yourself to get used to these new spaces inside, to really start to hold them in this world and not to just spend them and deplete your energy. Because there's also tends to be a building, right? We kind of, while we drop out a lot of big walls initially, we tend to go through layers of increasing sensitivities. We drop out more and more stuff, more and more of these angers and fears. Because most people don't go straight to total realization with an awakening. They go to the point that they can handle. And a lot of people even feel like they can't handle what they've got. But I can definitely tell you, like, where I was when I woke up in 2007 compared to now are very, very different places for me. Like, I'm definitely more aware, grounded, and sensitive at the same time. But because I don't have as many of these things that can be jarred inside me by whatever is wafting through the ether today, I'm not bothered by as much stuff as I would have been then if I had more stuff ripped off and made open that I just might have shut down. You know, because that's kind of like another mechanism the ego will have. And I've seen that happen to some people where they just go boom. And they're just in so much pain and internal torment because they're holding on to this old way of being. They just don't even know how to handle this level of freedom and awareness. So for those of you awakening, you know, I really encourage you to keep trusting this inner intelligence, but keep staying present with it and embracing it. If you do need to make real changes in your life to leave situations that aren't healthy or happy for you, it's important that you make them. This is the time to do that. But after that, don't keep making tons of changes. You know, it's generally speaking more important to just be quiet, to sit, to give this stuff space to kind of move, because it really moves on its own. It's so intelligent. And then when you notice that you get upset around certain energies, pay attention to that. What's getting upset? What's your piece in it? What's getting triggered? Because as you remove some of these old triggers that, you know, the external world is hitting with its incessant little button pushing that it likes to do, then the next time it tries to push that button, you don't notice. You don't react in the same way. You're losing those egoic reactions that just kind of feel very knee-jerk. So you can come from a more mindful, conscious place in the choices you make. You know, I can talk a little bit about the energetic shielding and psychic visualizations and stuff you can do, and I try to stay away from that. I feel like that's very secondary, because the more you're in the space of love, that's the best type of shielding of all. It naturally just kind of sends out a certain vibration, and certain things don't want to be around love, and other people do. And there are other things you'll learn about, you know, who is supportive to you, and so it's always important to pay attention to what people and places and situations are draining you, are supporting you, and what others are just kind of hanging out because they like to be around somebody who's just in that light. And that can be helpful too as you go. But I think I did another video a while ago about finding kind of your sacred place to retreat to for the time being. So if you really have just woken up and you're looking at this video and like, well, what do I do? I really encourage you, go within and find a safe place where you can just camp out for several months, maybe even a year or two. It may seem like a long time now, but generally speaking, it's probably one of the most important things you can do for yourself, so you can find your way through this sacred shift. So I hope that these thoughts have been helpful for you. Once again, my name is Jim Tolles. I'm a spiritual teacher, and you can find me regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. Have a great day.